from struggle to stardom. So picture this. It's 2017, the Dolby Theater in Los Angeles, the Academy Awards, and a woman walks up to that stage to accept the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. And before she says anything profound, before she thanks anyone, she looks at that golden statue and says, "You know, I became an artist, and thank God I did, because we are the only profession that celebrates what it means to live a life." That woman was Viola Davis, and honestly, that might be the most Viola Davis thing anyone has ever said while holding an Oscar. But here's the thing about that moment that most people don't realize. When Viola stood on that stage, she wasn't just making history as the first Black actress to win an Oscar, Emmy, and a Tony. She was completing a journey that started in a place so far removed from Hollywood glamour that it almost seems like fiction. Except it's not fiction. It's better than fiction because it actually happened. The beginning. Let's rewind a few decades. We're going back to August 11th, 1965, in a small county in South Carolina. Viola Davis enters the world as the fifth of 6 children born to May Alice and Dan Davis. Now, when I say her family was struggling, I'm not being dramatic. I'm being accurate. Her father worked as a horse groomer. Her mother was a maid and factory worker. The family lived in poverty that Viola herself has described with unflinching honesty. We're talking about a childhood where hunger wasn't a metaphor, where seeing rats in your home wasn't unusual, where taking baths in the basin because there wasn't proper plumbing was just Tuesday. When Viola was 2 months old, her family moved to Central Falls, Rhode Island, looking for better opportunities. And look, Rhode Island is lovely, but Central Falls in the late 1960s and 70s, not exactly rolling out the red carpet for a Black family trying to climb out of poverty. Young Viola watched her father struggle with alcoholism. She watched her mother work herself to exhaustion. She went to bed hungry more nights than any child should. And here's where it gets interesting, because this is the part where most people expect the story to go, and then she discovered acting and everything changed. Nope, not yet, because life doesn't work like a 2-hour movie, does it? The discovery. What actually happened was this. Viola was a kid who felt invisible. She was teased at school. She struggled with self-esteem. She was trying to navigate a world that didn't seem particularly interested in making room for her. And then, at some point during her childhood, someone introduced her to theater, and something clicked. Not in a Hollywood magical way, but in a quiet, profound way. When Viola acted, when she stepped into someone else's story, she felt seen, she felt valuable, she felt like she mattered. So she kept doing it. She joined the theater program at Central Falls High School, and people noticed. Because here's the thing about genuine talent. It's like trying to hide a bonfire with a napkin. It just doesn't work. Her teachers saw something special. They encouraged her. They told her she could actually do this for real. And Viola, who had spent most of her life being told what she couldn't do or who she couldn't be, started to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could be an actress. She got a full scholarship to Rhode Island College, and then, and this is where things get serious, she was accepted into the Juilliard School. You know, just one of the most prestigious drama schools in the entire world. No big deal, except it was a very big deal. Now here's where I need you to adjust your expectations again, because getting into Juilliard didn't mean Viola graduated and immediately started booking major roles and buying houses in the Hollywood Hills. What it meant was she graduated in 1993 and then spent years doing what every serious actor does. She paid her dues. And when I say paid her dues, I mean she was out there hustling, small theater productions, tiny roles, off-Broadway shows, the kind of work that doesn't pay enough to cover rent, but teaches you everything about your craft. She was talented, everyone could see that, but the roles available for Black actresses in the 1990s, let's just say they weren't exactly written with complexity and depth in mind. Viola found herself auditioning for the same types of characters over and over, the sidekick, the stereotype, the one-dimensional supporting role that existed only to serve someone else's story. And here's what makes Viola different. She could have just taken those roles and everyone been grateful for the work, many people would have, but Viola had this annoying habit of wanting more. Not more money necessarily, more truth, more humanity, more complexity. She wanted to play real people, not caricatures. So she kept working. She kept showing up. She did guest spots on television shows. She did theater in small venues where sometimes the audience was smaller than the cast. She waited tables between gigs. She struggled financially. She wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake pursuing this dream. But she didn't quit, and that's kind of important. The breakthrough that took its sweet time. Viola started getting noticed in the early 2000s, small parts in films here and there, a role in a Steven Soderbergh movie, another one in a Denzel Washington film. People in the industry started saying her name with respect. Viola Davis, oh, she's incredible. But incredible doesn't always translate to leading roles, not when you don't fit Hollywood's narrow definition of what a star is supposed to look like. In 2008, she got a role in a film called Doubt with Meryl Streep and Philip Seymour Hoffman. Her role? She was in one scene. That's it. One single scene where she played a mother confronting a priest about her son. And she took that one scene and delivered a performance so powerful, so raw, so absolutely devastating that she got nominated for an Academy Award for one scene in a supporting role. That's like showing up to a potluck with one casserole and somehow winning the entire dinner. She didn't win that Oscar, but something shifted. People weren't just saying her name with respect anymore. They were saying it with awe. Changing the rules. Then came 2010 and a playwright named August Wilson and a play called Fences. Viola took on the role of Rose Maxon on Broadway, and this is where we need to pause and talk about what Viola brings to a role. She doesn't act pretty, she doesn't act safe, she acts truthful even when truth is messy and complicated and involves snot running down your face while you're crying, especially then. She once said in an interview that she's not afraid to be seen as less than pretty if that's what the moment requires. Her performance in Fences was, look, people who saw it still talk about it with this tone in their voice like they witnessed something holy. She won the Tony Award, standing ovation, the whole thing. But here's what matters more. Viola was now in a position where she could start making choices, real choices about the story she wanted to tell and how she wanted to tell them. In 2014, she took on the role of Annalise Keating in the television show How to Get Away with Murder. And this is where Viola really started changing the game, because Annalise wasn't a stereotype. She wasn't one-dimensional. She was complicated, flawed, brilliant, messy, powerful, vulnerable, and utterly human. And in one particular episode, Viola took off her wig and makeup on camera, showing her character in her most vulnerable state. It sounds simple, but it was revolutionary. It was a black woman on prime time being shown as fully, completely human. She won an Emmy for that role, and in her acceptance speech, she quoted Harriet Tubman, "I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves." She was talking about imagination, about how we're limited by what we can imagine for ourselves. The Crown. Back to that Oscar in 2017, remember? The one I mentioned at the beginning? That was for Fences, the film adaptation, where she recreated her role as Rose opposite Denzel Washington. When she won, she said, "There is one place that all the people with the greatest potential are gathered, one place, and that's the graveyard." People ask me all the time, what kind of stories do you want to tell, Viola? And I say, exhume those bodies, exhume those stories. That's what she's been doing ever since. Telling stories that matter, playing characters who are real, refusing to be limited by anyone else's narrow imagination. So what did Viola Davis actually change? What game are we talking about here? She changed the game by refusing to play it the way it had always been played. She showed up as exactly who she was, with her dark skin, her full features, her natural hair, her refusal to be anything other than authentically herself. She took roles that were underwritten and filled them with so much humanity that they became unforgettable. She proved that you don't have to fit the mold to become one of the greatest actors of your generation. You can break the mold entirely and build something new. From a childhood of poverty in Rhode Island to the EGOT winner she is today, Viola's journey reminds us that the path from struggle to stardom isn't a straight line. It's not even a particularly pleasant line most of the time. It's messy and hard and full of moments where quitting seems like the only reasonable option. But here's what Viola understood. Even when she was that little girl going to bed hungry, even when she was a struggling actor waiting tables, even when she was being told she wasn't Hollywood enough, your value isn't determined by whether other people can see it. Your worth exists whether anyone recognizes it or not. She just kept showing up, kept doing the work, kept refusing to accept less than the full complexity of human experience in her art. And eventually, the world caught up to what she'd always known. That's not just how you change the game, that's how you change the whole playing field.